We are starting to be fewer because many other people are leaving of the speakers, but we will have these 3 more days, and today we start with my colleagues from IPT, Ana do Carmo and Júlio Silva, that will be talking to us again about Saramago, which is, I'm not so fond of Saramago. Okay, this goes in the record.
Good morning. Good morning to you all. My name is Ana do Carmo, as Professor already presented us. This sounds strange. It's okay with the sound? Okay. Okay. We are going to present our project, Azinhaga by Saramago, Contributions to the Construction of Cultural Memory and Identity through Audiovisual Productions. The project MAS, Memories of Azinhaga by Saramago, is being developed by a transdisciplinary team within the Technology Restoration and Arts Enhancement Center, TechniArt, at Polytechnic Institute of Tomorrow. In association with the Azinhaga's delegation of José Saramago Foundation, it aims to develop 8 short films inspired by the book As Pequenas Memórias by the Portuguese Nobel laureate to raise public awareness of the connection between José Saramago and his birthplace. As Pequenas Memórias is a book of biographic memories covering Saramago's young age between his 4 and 15 years, the author's only autobiographical work, which takes place in Azinhaga. Azinhaga is a village in the municipality of Gulgã, in Ribatejo, in central Portugal, nearby. One of the places we quickly associate with José Saramago tends to be the island of Lanzarote in the Canary Islands archipelago in Spain. However, as can be read in the book As Pequenas Memórias, Saramago wanted the readers to know where he came from, and, in prose, he offers us, through the narration of episodes lived in first person, a perspective for a better understanding of Azinhaga was like in the 1920s and the 1930s. Projeto MAS aims to contribute to the dissemination and valorization of Saramago's artistic heritage, as well as to preserve and promote the cultural heritage of Azinhaga and consequently identity construction. From those 2 goals, the research question was extracted. How can the cultural memory based on As Pequenas Memórias can be amplified and disseminated with a view to its preservation and valorization? The scientific background for this project lays on 3 main and complementary axes: memory preservation, enhancement of artistic and cultural heritage, and moving image as a tool for preserving memory and valuing heritage. This transdisciplinary project, based on Saramago's work, understands cultural aspects while still alive from a recent past, whose technological race is fading fast. But it is with this same technology and specialized and transdisciplinary team that the aim is to reinterpret the past, immaterializing its memory in 8 short films. This multidisciplinary approach encompassing the following areas: literature, sociology, ethnography, life sciences, audiovisual productions, and design. In a first phase, the memories of space-time reality described in the book were analyzed. It was carried out a denotative approach to the literary text in order to identify spaces, people, knowledge, and traditions, and observe the geographical space of Azinhaga through Saramago's work. In the analysis were found reference to different activities, such as those related to the olive harvesting, agriculture, farm work, cattle breeding, recreational fishing, like Saramago's mentioned, the recreation fishing he did without much skill, but still managed to catch the fish, or the frog hunting, not part of the selected text passage, but of some interest in our project. Other professional activities were also mentioned, like tractor driver, occasional and seasonal activity, or the shoemaker, or the boatman who crossed the Tagus River from one bank to the other. In the analysis, there were also identified the places in Azinhaga and its surrounding region, like the grandparents' house that does not exist anymore, and the Almonda and Tagus rivers and the Boquilogue bog. This approach to the text concerns the way of interpreting the territory, its people and customs from Saramago's recollected gaze, a revisiting of places and events that mark the author's life as a child. In other words, it is an encounter with the past of Saramago's short memories as an object of memory construction. Subsequently, the 8 audiovisual productions dedicated to José Saramago's childhood recollections intend to offer the spectator fragments of landscapes, people, and places of a certain time. In addition, they seek to enhance the discovery of Azinhaga and the surrounding region. The contact with the territorial and cultural context will be made through fieldwork with visits to the study spaces and filming, identification of persons of interest to be interviewed, and the interviews will be record and video, following semi-structured scripts, photo elicitation, and narrative interviews. The answer to the research question and accomplishment of the project goals will be materialized mainly in the production of 8 short films. Each short film will have elements of reconstruction of memory inspired by the work of Saramago, updated with testimonies and audiovisual records of the present time and space. The novelty and originality inherent to this project lies in 2 main points: in the content, that is, the exploration of the connection between territory of Azinhaga and the author, and in the form of or methodology used to present this relationship built upon Saramago's text. The conjunction of these 2 elements configure a unique approach to the study of the author's literary work and the subsequent construction of the cultural memory of the region. Next, we have Mass Project video teaser.
I just want to know why you wrote ethnography. Have you done a sort of ethnography through the book? I don't understand why, simply.
Well, this project, Mainz, is based on the book, the story of the Saramago's childhood. So we try to, through the book and the interpretation of Saramago of this land, his land where it's born, try to understand how it has been in the past and how it's in now, comparison, okay? What it was and now what it, by all the spaces and all the persons, all the profession, all that kind of things, all the traditions, and all the things we find in that place, in that land, and try to, what we try to do there, okay? Interpretation from literature, and try to identify what is stay, what is lost, everything about that. I don't know if is that the right answer for you, but
yes, but I have another question. This is a work of literature. Maybe some parts of a book are just an invention of the author.
well, not.
How can you?
Sorry to interrupt you. Is the only book from is on live. Is not a story. It's not a story. Is memories from his life, the real life he has made in that land. So it's not fiction. It's not a novel. Okay, is a only book, a biography book from Saramago. It's very important because of that. Okay, so it's not invention. It's from his living, his experience. But Saramago have a kind way to write some things, some happens, some accomplishments, different way about his only. It's happened this. No, he have a very interesting story in the book. If you want to read, it's very because it's the red laser tip, right? Lizard, the red lizard. Is nothing ever about the lizard, ever a main story behind, okay? So, but it's described by the lizard, the red lizard. So, all the places talk about the red lizard, but it's not about the lizard. It's about a story about he's living, but it's described in a different way.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I'm not sure that I have understood properly the project that you made and you just presented. Was it for the community and the people that are living there, or is there an educational program behind, or a touristic goals to develop the economic activities, for example?
Okay, you said right. Two targets for education, and one of them to touristic demonstration for the city, because we have tourism literary, scientific tourism, or cinematography tourism. This is made some short videos to promote the literature, the culture, the land, and promote them. Okay, so Saramago is the only novel prize we have. So it's very important because he's from here. Everybody knows Saramago, but most of the people don't know he was born near here. So it's a way to promote where he's born, to promote that land, that persons, that business, everything. He's trying to educate for the kids educate for the persons. So is a mean way to get more touristic persons based on Saramago with the videos. Videos is to promote and to preserve with image that stories.
Good morning. I'm just curious to know in which phase of the project you are. Have you already started the movies? Are they already available?
No, we are starting now to filming the interviews. We have some image for the teaser, but not finished that part. We are constructing the part of the short videos. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, of course. Saramago is the person in Portugal most know in the world as Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so it's very, very famous. So the target is to get all the world. Yeah, of course. We probably going to one of the things we are not define 100% is how we going to put the sound in the short video. So probably if they are narrated, okay, with the lecture from the book, probably can be in the other language also.
I just wanted to leave here the challenge to do something with us at some stage with your team, which I think it's a very good team.
Thank you very much.
Invite François Sémah. François Sémah is a professor at the Muséum National d'Histoire Naturelle. He is also the coordinator of the Quaternarian Priestry Master on behalf of Museum. As a researcher, is a researcher in priestry and particularly on Southeast Asia, having conducted extensive research in that region and particularly in Indonesia. And so it is a great pleasure to have François today. He has also conducted important coordination on all the education sector of the museum. And in that condition, he has been engaged also in a certain moment with Declam, because in the past, in the priestry of Declam, the museum was a partner, a formal partner. So you see there are many links that connect us. So again, technical things.
Very structured. Just would like to share with you a couple of interrogations, maybe. This is what I would like to share with you. In fact, a couple of questions. The first one, some of you are prehistorians, so you will be allowed not to listen. It's not a problem. But as this is the first time I meet with Declam students in Massam, and that's why I had to add a couple of minutes just to introduce the object. Then you have the list of questions. In fact, my very topic is that of the seminar, which is the two last lines, and especially trying to share with you the difference and the continuity between collaboration and participation when it comes to archaeology and it comes to prehistory. Unfortunately, this topic will be somewhat accessory in my short talk, because I'm much more interested in the two lines highlighted in blues, because I'm not a specialist. So one thing, what I learned when I was a kid, is that if you want someone to do something properly, you have to attract her or him by things that she or he likes. So understanding people is maybe the most critical issue if we want to deal with participatory archaeology. And unfortunately, once more, I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a sociologist, and I'm not a communicator, and that's why we have to join with many people who can help us, who can teach us how to approach, how to understand, and how to meet people. Fortunately enough, interestingly, if you have any sense of human relationships, that can cover the lack of academic background in such issues. So I will insist on the blue lines. Okay, that's for the clam people. We are dealing with an archaeological object. In fact, a quite important and a major chapter of human history was written during the last 2 million years in island Southeast Asia. You meet there people who became the earliest islanders in human history, who crossed for the first time, crossed again the equatorial line, who had to discover new ecosystems, new environment, and of course, to adapt. So you can imagine the huge number of factors dealing with biological evolution, cultural adaptation, etc., endemism that happened in that region of the world. Okay, the first discoveries, in fact, human paleontology was more or less born in island Southeast Asia, following the well-known precursors' works and the scientific revolution that happened at the middle of the 19th century, and at the turn of the 20th century, following Haeckel's teaching in Germany, a Dutch physician moved to Indonesia and discovered in the eastern part of Java what they called at the time the missing link. And that was the discovery of Trinil, and that fossil is still the holotype of the taxon that we prehistorians quote as Homo erectus. Let's go to Sangiran, because the talk is about Sangiran. Sangiran was well known by people for ages and was rediscovered, say, by a German paleontologist, Ralph von Königswald, who played a very important part in training young Javanese and Indonesian researchers before World War II, that means before the independence. When you look at Sangiran, it relates you a story that lasted for about 2 million years. You have a lot of different stratigraphical sequences yielding fossils and yielding artifacts. So, of course, people like us like to undertake excavations to recover fossils, recover artifacts, and sometimes, of course, recover those Homo erectus fossils in order to reconstruct the chapter of human evolution I mentioned just a minute ago. So, what is, in fact, Sangiran OUV? What is OUV? All of you know. It is a word which is not English nor French. It's a word in quite complex language, but Luis can speak that language, which is called UNESCIAN. People in UNESCO speak about outstanding universal value. Of course, you see that this kind of heritage object provides the Sangiran Dome with an outstanding universal value. We could discuss for ages about that. And what I told you about human biological and cultural adaptation also provides Sangiran with a complementary value. And that's why quite early, it was in 1995, 1996, Sangiran was inscribed in the World Heritage List. At the time, in fact, the applications for World Heritage were quite simple and sometimes grounding on strange reasons. Here, Sangiran was nominated using, among others, criterion 3 of the World Heritage Convention. And I mentioned you one of the sentences, strange sentences, written by the ICOMOS experts at the time. And it contains data which are highly disputable. But anyway, the value of Sangiran was acknowledged and Sangiran was inscribed on the World Heritage List. Let's go to the second topic, people and their perception of heritage. The dome is about 60 square kilometers. And just imagine that on these 60 square kilometers, you have a density of population which is twice the density you find in the Greater Paris, not in Paris alone, but what we call the Greater Paris. That means that you have on that little surface something like 200,000 people. 200,000 people means how many feet? 400,000. Good. How many eyes? 400, except for those who have only one. Okay? So, in fact, Java is people. And Sangiran might be, for the World Heritage List, the major site regarding human evolution with the highest density of people. That is important. Just look at this stratigraphical section. You can easily imagine, even for those who are not prehistorians, that erosion is quite active. We are under a tropical climate. You can easily imagine that stratigraphical sections are washed and washed again during the rainy season, and that the rivers yield a lot of fossils, artifacts, and any scientific data. On the right side of the slide, you have my tiny excavation. How many are we? 6 on that photograph, maybe 20 during the excavation. What is 20 people compared to the 200,000. Okay, you'll tell me those 20 people are used with archaeological research, and the others are not. But the others have feet, and the others have eyes. So you can easily imagine that there is a huge amount of scientific data which is met every day by people and which is lost, in fact. So our purpose as prehistorians, our egoistic purpose, should be, on the long term, to help to recover those data in a perspective, of course, of increasing the famous OUV, because we bring science, but also to help conservation of the site. And for that, we have to know who are those 200,000 people. They are quite numerous, and they have, of course, as Homo sapiens, their own perception of heritage. And here we meet something which is quite specific in Java. This is a puppet shadow theater. When you go to watch a performance 200 years ago, when you went to Covent Garden in London, when you went to Scala in Milano or Opéra de Paris, you meet only high-class society people. Okay? And even now, I know that Opéra de Paris is endeavoring a lot to attract young people from the suburbs, but it doesn't work as yet. It's only on the trend, on the way. On the contrary, Javanese culture is highly democratic, even though this is kind of feudal society. When you have this kind of theater, the Sultan or the king is sitting on one side of the screen and the people on the other side. And they share, they enjoy precisely the same performance. So that is one element we might take into account. And if we want to know what are the characteristics of the society regarding heritage, we can as well enter in academic documents in order to discover that. One is a big encyclopedia that was published upon the initiatives of that king. And before he died, he decided to organize kind of a very large Apheleia seminar. It was not in Março. Okay? He invited all those learned persons, and he asked them to write papers and to deliver papers that were published in the Serracentini. And in Serracentini, we find the mention, and in other documents as well, we find the mention of fossils. And those fossils were told to be very abundant in certain sites, very well known by people for ages, and they were said to be the remains of the victims of the great mythic Hinduistic battles that you find in the mythology. So they were, say in short, giant bones. And even Sangiran itself has its own story. You see here the battle between the hero and the giant. And the hero, in order to win the battle against the giant, had to sharpen his nail on a specific rock, which is a silicified volcanic tuff, which is still used to sharpen knives. So there is a story that links geology, petrography, fossils, etc. This perception of heritage, we speak about Sangiran, is quite global and not restricted only to fossils and artifacts. You see here the traditional weapons called kris, which are transmitted from generation to generation, and each blade has its own personality and its own power. Cemeteries sometimes are quite important as well. And stories, myths are associated to cemeteries. This one is in the center of Sangiran Dome and linked with a very famous discovery of Homo erectus. Water, of course. Any country, any area with a link with Hinduism has a specific relationship with water and the sacral aspect of water springs. Architecture, that was noticed also by UNESCO, not at the first missions, but around 2008. They made an evaluation mission and they noticed that architecture in Sangiran is decreasing. So you have a loss of traditional houses and an uprise, of course, of concrete houses. And this partly destroys the global heritage in Sangiran. Living arts, some people try to link living arts and paleontology. And of course, don't forget, we're in an Asian country, the use of bones, of fossils in medicine. For instance, in Sangiran, a tooth from a fossil hippo is considered as very powerful if I'm bitten by a snake. Of course, if you look at the inner structure of the tooth, the dentine inside is quite porous and it can absorb the poison. This is also well known in China. And do not forget that von Königswald, I spoke about von Königswald a couple of minutes ago, discovered the first fossils of Gigantopithecus. You have the picture of Gigantopithecus there, in Hong Kong drugstores before World War II. So heritage is more or less everywhere in the life. On a World Heritage site, it can yield some risks. Alors, one is purely legal. Of course, you can imagine that people who were not rich used to trade fossils to tourists, collectors, etc., etc. Something which is heavily forbidden by law, of course, and also forbidden by the UNESCO Convention about illicit trade of cultural objects. But you can still find in some antique markets fossils from Sangiran. Anthropic activity, beginning with the government himself. Okay, you see that huge museum. But sand quarry, concrete buildings, etc., are risks against the heritage. And another factor that can be considered as a risk is the high contrast between development effort driven by the government and people. I told you we are in a feudal society. The Javanese people are very polite, very kind, but also very respectful of any hierarchy. And you can easily imagine that those people on the lower picture can feel shy when they are told, you may enter that huge museum building built by the government. So appropriation, ownership, self-ownership of huge museums like that, even though those museums can be beautiful, can be very useful, makes a problem in order when we want to involve the communities. Okay, not only risks, but also challenges and opportunities. And here, sometimes, we have to go back with historians. And one of the current PhDs in our institution is studying all the newspapers since Indonesia's independence in order to try to look if there is any evolution in the involvement of society. And here I took only one example, which is that of a former aide of von Königswald, who developed a high motivation towards fossils. And he even opened the very first site museum that was in the early 60s in Sangiran. Unfortunately, all photographs of that museum are lost, but it resembles that one, which is in another site in Western Java. So this is kind of embryo of community-owned museum. Another point is the story of the heritage itself. Alors look at this skull. It was discovered 55 years ago. And of course, people were very happy when they discovered it. It was fragmented. And it was delivered to a famous professor in Bandung. And then, of course, all the scientific community was quite excited. We have the face of an Homo erectus, etc., and blah, blah, blah. A lot of publications. But the fate of the fossil itself in Sangiran was a different story. So this is Anne-Marie working with the sons of the discoverer. At the time, the discoverer himself was a teenager. So we had the story by the discoverer. We had the story by the father of the discoverer. We had the story by the uncle of the discoverer, by other people. And time elapsing, everyone wanted to have a part in the discovery. And this fossil, besides being a major element for paleoanthropology, becomes also an element of anthropological research in Sangiran itself, which can be recorded, which hopefully will be analyzed someday, and which can be exhibited. Okay, now we can discuss a bit about the synergy between collaboration and participation. Making people participate, okay, implies to involve them in activities that interest them. In order to know if prehistory and paleoanthropology can interest someone, the best is to involve him or her in the field and to develop some activities in order just to know. Of course, we have the excavations. Okay, for those who are not prehistorians, you can ask to IMQP students, and they will tell you that the best school of prehistory is an excavation campaign. Second is to ask people who participate to the excavation to take responsibilities. For instance, taking responsibility in organizing the visits of the site, taking responsibility in teaching people on collections, organizing scientific meetings, but not in lavish context, but on the spot, in order to free the world. Everyone can speak, everyone can ask, and there is absolutely no boundary. And this is a quite useful collaborative tool. Then, once you have reached that point, you can try to develop activities which are at the crossroads between collaboration and participation. One more step. Developing kind of signposting, very small museum near the excavation. It looks like there is an irony between making such a nano museum compared to the huge building I showed you. But making it in a Javanese style and in a very smaller scale can be something useful. It's still collaborative. And then, at last, people can organize themselves. The most driven people can make organizations, develop some activities, and especially these organizations are very useful for us because they act like scouts. They act like intermediate facilitators between the researchers, the curators, and all layers of the society. Those people are used to be taught, because there is a social policy of the government in terms of culture. It is useful but limited. They are used to be taught from top to bottom. So you can ask them to teach. Teach children downstairs. And a point that I discussed in Isernia with several of you, which is try to develop the dialogue with scientists. And here, involving students appears to be a very powerful instrument. Because you students are, say, researchers. You have something to say about the heritage. Those people have also something to say. So you can meet, and if you organize such exchange knowledge, local people feel much more free to share their knowledge with a group of students rather than with a group of scholars, because they are used to be taught from top to bottom. So this is something very important, and we explored many topics thanks to this direct collaboration between members of local organizations and our students. We can go now to actual participatory activities. I will just, because it's late, will just quote three. One was by chance. I've shown you what I call the Nano Museum. Unfortunately, there was a big flood, and despite all our efforts to protect it from the flood, it was partly destroyed. It happened that, without being asked by us, one of those groups made an application to gather funds to restore the foundations, and it was successful. So we were quite happy because that was actually a participatory initiative. And they were invited in the university in Salatiga in order to present their results. Second one is developed by our colleague Natalia, who went here last year, I suppose. I forgot. And Natalia is quite interested with gender studies. Alors, this is also an important issue because gender, usually, heritage in this country is very often a matter of men. Contrary to the group yesterday where Negasi was very daring to be the only guy in a huge group of women when you prepared your project. So Natalia was interested in people dealing with living art activity, which are the ladies making the batiks. Usually, those ladies are given drawing by a designer and then ordered to prepare a very high quality work and to deliver a batik. Natalia went to them, told them, tell me what is your feeling of prehistoric heritage. Can you make a drawing? And they prepared the drawing, and only at that spot, Natalia brought them to the designer in order to refine the drawing and prepare such batiks. After that, the batiks were exhibited on the spot, but also they prepared a quite sophisticated fashion show in town, which was successful. And the deliverable here was for Natalia that all these ladies were crying during the fashion show. Last one, a conjunction between two facts. First fact, this kind of what we call a selfie spot, which are flourishing all over Indonesia, and I hate them personally because I consider it destroys the landscape. But it is trendy, and you can find a lot. Compared to an initiative that was developed in Paris in our museum, a Chinese company made a scientific lantern festival. Maybe some of you have visited last year and this year. So the idea, this is not a project only, we are only at the feasibility study step. The idea is to recreate what we call in those countries the night markets, which are a place enjoyed by all generations. And the idea is to ask the organization not to take part in a scientific initiative, not to develop by themselves a scientific initiative that should be directed by the government, but to find a way to develop something which is scientific, which contributes to conservation, and which is not contradicting the law. And the Lantern Festival might be something. So we found the land, and then we convinced them to prepare the feasibility study, working together with university scholars in tourism. And they provided this. So you enter, you have a bridge, you can see all the landscape, and then you visit this labyrinth, climbing in the stratigraphy, and the lanterns will be all there. And here you'll get the recreational activities. That was made by the community, together with 2 prototypes of lanterns. The first one is a stegodon, kind of proboscis, and the second one is the pandanus, a very useful plant. So I suppose it is time to conclude for me, and I will just present you one more idea about that. When I looked at the result of this market, I noticed the entrance here in plasticine, which is an elephant tusk. And I told them, for me it's strange that you want to use this tusk for the entrance while the government museum everywhere use those giant and spectacular and beautiful tusks. Oh, you're right, they told me. So what can you use? Okay, we shall think about, and we need to get a symbol which is different from the governments. So they are still thinking about that, but one lady who is preparing cakes and selling cakes in the market, she just told me very simply, let's use the pandanus. Why do you want to use the pandanus? It's quite difficult to make it as a symbol, but why not? Oh, that's very simple. You told us that you can find fossil of pandanus pollen back to 2 million years ago and more. So we have the pandanus throughout the stratigraphy. Presently, we use pandanus leaves for our roofs. We use pandanus fruits to make my cakes. So pandanus is still living and still very accompanying humans throughout their history. So it might be a good symbol. I noticed that, and after that, I was a bit hopeful. Merci.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question that, in your opinion, what's the differences between the community involvement in Indonesia and that in Europe?
I suppose the difference is especially between collaboration and participation. Developing both at the same scale is something very usual in Europe. Developing and discriminating those activities in Indonesia or in other southern countries is something much more difficult. The basic difference is that if I go to Louis excavations in France, I do that on my holidays, okay? I don't do that to get money to live. That is the big difference, I suppose.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about the collaboration. So you told us that the initiatives that are there are the involvement of the people in excavations, so with the communities. But my question is, are the community very open to these excavations? They are not showing like reticence, because I think it's doing excavation is not for everybody. Maybe they are saying like, oh, we are not professional, we don't know how to deal with this, we don't know a lot of things about. So that's for you to do, because you have studies, you know how to do excavations, you have studies in archaeology and so on.
So that's the basic question I told you. Difference between collaboration and participation. So when you collaborate, you open your excavation. Everything starts up from science, in fact. So you open the scientific field, that is the excavation. You want to come or not? Maybe you will come because you need a salary. Maybe you will come because you are interested. Maybe you will come, many motivations, okay? And here, the sorting begins. You are interested or not? Okay, I got my salary, I go back home, I'm not interested. My brother is not interested to work there, etc., etc. But for those who are interested, they can become the intermediate, the facilitators between community and researchers and curators. So the first thing you have is to train those people in a very classic way. That's why I don't dare to tell this is participation. It is not. They are taught to do something. They learn to do something. Okay? But after that, they can organize themselves. When they are organized, you can provide those organizations some responsibilities. Just for instance, if you come to the site, one of them will bring you looking at other sites. I won't be there. Okay? So you will exchange. This is an intermediate activity between participation and collaboration. And after that, you can have actual participatory activities. If the Lantern Festival someday comes out, the scientists will be only consultants. But this is a scientific initiative. It brings along a scientific message proper to encourage conservation, and it is totally organized by the community. So the roles are reversed, but you have to build the system, and carefully. Don't enter any demagogy or whatever. It won't last.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your sharing. I would like to ask about, have you heard about the illegal traders of the Sangiran Homo erectus fossils several years before? So how do you think about that, and in your opinion, how to prevent it? Or until now, is it still common in those areas of the illegal traders?
Topic. Officially, they are not anymore. But in reality, you still find. Okay? Sand quarries, for instance, were a reason for people to tell, okay, we quarry sand, we recover sand for buildings, but in fact, they were looking for fossils. So, this is a very complex problem. And education can help for that.
Thank you very much.
Mais tu en as, you will find also in France, and people, and we were discussing yesterday about collections that were sold and then taken back in Charles de Gaulle.
Hello, sir. Yes. You mentioned about the Hinduism and the role of water and the significance of the spirits. I would like to know what's the religion of the community based in that region of excavation?
Okay, I suppose Yves will answer you in a larger way after that. The main religion in Indonesia is Islam, okay? But you have also part of Christian, Buddhist, and what they call Aliran kepercayaan bahasa Inggris apa? Oui, non, mais en anglais.
Animism, dynamism.
Okay, that means that very often in villages, people have two religions. I can be a Catholic in Java, but go together with my grandfather to make some ritual that is in connection with a former Hinduistic or Buddhist rituals. So it is still very embedded in the culture. But you can be a good Muslim while respecting those ancient traditions. Yes or no?
Professor Sémah? In terms of, I'm very big on on community engagement and bridging the gap between the academics, researchers, and the common people of the community. So, in terms of these programs that you are doing, are you sure that you are bridging the gap between the locals and the researchers, because they are not on the same level? I would like to believe.
Okay, we meet today because both of us are interested with the thematic of the seminar. So what is basic? If we want to speak, we need to have something to say about an object. Okay? We can eat fish maybe for lunch. You like the fish, I don't like the fish, we can discuss. We discuss about the object. So this is the basic of any human relationship. And it bridges, of course. As long as you have something to say about the fossils, about the artifacts, about the stratigraphical sections. And that's why this initial training in excavations is absolutely mandatory. You cannot create it like that. Just for instance, if you receive a young lady or young man who's interested to learn about your work, how to excavate, how to look at fossils, how to document fossils, etc., etc., you have an exchange with him or her, and she can help the exchange with her grandfather, who collected fossils, but is not especially interested to discover my field of work.
Hi, sir. Thank you. I have a little doubt about the project of Natalia, because you say about the reaction of these women to see her work, but what happened with the men's? What is the reaction? Because sometimes these projects be like little local, affect the women. That is important.
Of gender difference, that's not the problem. But the problem is that culturally, when you speak about heritage policy, say, you will gather mostly men. So it changes progressively, never mind. But, especially in the village, involving ladies via a lady activity is something very important for us. Involving the ladies. 20 years ago, I had no lady in the excavation. Now we have, okay? So this is, society is changing, okay? But what is original in Natalia's approach is to address an activity which is traditional, which is linked with living heritage, and which involves only ladies. So the ownership by the ladies group is much higher for that, and progressing towards a balance.
Just a final observation. I think François presented is a very good example on how to not to mix, not to make a confusion between the socialization of knowledge and the performance of pretend to be participation. That if you want to have real participation, in the end, it's a form of alienation. Because real participation requires conceptualization of what you are doing. Gave examples of the delicate equilibrium with, I must say, a great success. It's very difficult. So, because often, particularly when we deal about heritage, nowadays we often see this approach that what is important is to talk about heritage. What is important is to have people doing things around heritage. But in the end, what we are doing is transforming, if we take that approach, we transform material remains of the past or intangible heritage into commodities. And it's a form of alienation. So it's not because we are dealing with the Sangiran skull and not with the McDonald's hamburger that they are different. They can only be different if the intellectual approach is different.
Something, this is totally preliminary, even the activities I presented you. The next step, but maybe I'll be dead at the time, will be to do actual science. I told you about that 500,000 eyes looking at data. How to build the process imitating what is done in biology and in ecology in order to prepare a validated and robust protocol of collecting data, screening data, validating data, and recording data. That will be for the future. But people must be ready for that before. You know that even participatory studies in Europe, you ask the kids to count the butterflies in the garden. And you have a lot of countings, and you can look at the evolution of the butterfly populations in southern Portugal, say. Okay? But even that needs a lot of protocols and a lot of people to validate also. There is still much work.
Thank you very much. Now we will have the coffee break, and we have to be here at a 15:15. The next two speakers will speak online. So they will expect, it's not that we can say, let's take 5 more minutes, okay? Technical issues. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so we are going to start, and we will have now with us Maurizio Quagliuolo. Maurizio Quagliuolo is professor in Italy. He's an archaeologist also, at least in the beginning of his career, primarily an archaeologist, but then primarily someone who devoted his career studying the relations between heritage, management, quality, and knowledge. So, and as part of that, he was the initiator of 1990s and century that discussed several aspects related to and leading to a reflection on the protection of heritage by citizenship or through citizenship. This would lead to the establishment of an international organization World Heritage Committee to ROM and other organizations of the sort, which deals with quality management of cultural heritage sites based on a specific method. Now I invite Maurizio, thanking him. Also, one thing is that Maurizio is one of the founders of Apheleia. I'm very happy, although he could not be in presence here, that he can share with us. Maurizio.
Thank you, Luis. Can you hear me? Okay. Regarding your kind presentation, I have to say that nobody is perfect. So when you said he's an archaeologist, yes, nobody is perfect. But I hope to have a lot of friends in the room, and we can discuss together the topic of my intervention during this brief span of time we will have. Before of this, I would like to say that I'm afraid not to be with you in presence for personal reasons, but I would like to greet every one of you, and especially colleagues from Heritage. I don't know who is still there or not, but for example, Renaldas, Elena, and other people who are not only colleagues but also friends. I think we have to find a way to meet each one in presence again as soon as possible. Luis Osterbeck, thank you very much for your invitation and for your support along the years to the work we have developed together about the organization you quoted, which is Heritage, from Heritage and Quality, the International Organization for Quality Management of Cultural Heritage. Today I am going to share my screen with you, but today we will speak about a specific issue that we developed in the last 2 or 3 years according to the principles and methodology of Heritage, but in a parallel field, which is how to manage resilience, how to manage territory, how to manage local communities according to theoretical principles that cannot change, of course. Ethics and cultural heritage and inclusion and so on are permanent, in brackets, concepts, but we have to adapt them to the specific situation. The disruption of the methodology which we tried to apply to a new scenario was the COVID period, of course, that changed in a very, very, very brief span of time the situation and the scenario. After this, we had the ongoing war, you know very well this, but before this, we had a lot of wars, and today we have a lot of wars in the world that nobody speaks about. If you watch at the news, at the television, for example, in Italy, it is very evident. You cannot know quite anything about the amount of conflicts we have now in several countries, and also the problem of migrations. In Italy, we are so sensible to this because we have 3,000 per day people coming here, and unfortunately a lot of deaths. And so you cannot speak about history, about archaeology, about management, about everything you want if you are not capable to consider the incredible scenario we are inside now. I have just to add that we have also the energetic crisis. So if you put everything of this, which is contemporary, which are contemporary issues, and you put them in front of our theoretical approach, you have to find how to match these problems, you know. So we started in this case, and I am going to share okay. No, I cannot do it. I cannot choose. Now I can. Okay. Can you see? Okay, perfect. So I can start. Do you see the slide? The first slide, yeah? Because I perfect. Okay. So we have to put together the two sides of this complex world. We are not going to speak about the theory of complexity, but it would be very useful to discuss this issue today. We are going to front. In any case, we started to consider that environment, technology, and culture are three main areas in which we interact, in which we live, and that we can modify during time, in a synchronic way and also in a diachronic way. We have a lot of interaction, and this is the reason why I did not put any connection, because the interaction is a sort of osmosis among different situations. You can use territory, you can destroy territory, you can use a museum, you can and have over-tourism, for example. You can use everything you want. You can use technology, of course, but how to use it. A very smart and very high level scholar who is Milan Zeleny told 40 years ago, spoke about hardware, software, and brainware. The hardware is clear. For example, a car. The software is how to ride this car, for example, but the brainware is how will we use this car. We will use it to kill someone or to go to our holidays place. So the brainware is the center of this reasoning, and use is depending from the brainware. Then you have infrastructures, of course, which are essential to day-by-day life. Just think to the structures during COVID, for example, period. But infrastructures are also an impact, a very big impact. Can have a very big impact on environment, on cultural heritage, on day-by-day life in a good or less good way. I am thinking at this proposal. I am thinking to the big projects, Cinta Costera 3 in Panama. We followed with the certification in 2013 when we went to the Casco Antiguo to assess the impact of the infrastructure, which was essential for the city, but had a very big impact on the landscape appearing also from the sea, watching the land. We have also economy, of course, which is the same. Is the same coin, is another phase of the same coin, if you want, because also in prehistory, economy was the exchange economy, for example, was a structure, a social structure, very important in some communities and so on. But economy can have different senses, different benefits or damages to our complex situation. And finally, axis. Axis is inclusion. Axis is the possibility to understand what is happening. The axis is access to water, is access to energy, is access to culture, is access to teaching, is access to a lot of variables that are strategic for the development of communities. This is why we started from considering two directions. The first is the directions of eco-museums, which were defined from Henri Rivière in the 18th of the last century, that territories that are they are the territories that can you understand and that can develop themselves thanks to the participation of communities. Museums is physical material. Museums are just a little part of eco-museums. The second was the Faro Convention that you know very well, but for example, Italy, which is a country that has a lot of cultural heritage, spent 15 years to adopt the convention. Italy adopted it in 2020, but the convention is 2005. So it is very, very interesting, and also very. This is the way we can judge the activity of the different countries dealing with these themes. Also, in the Faro Convention, we have a social big importance of the participation of the communities in building culture and in protecting previous material and immaterial cultures. Today, in this case, we had difficulties to start from big cities, from cities, metropolitan areas and smart cities and so on, because they were stratified, also in archaeological terms, they were stratified in cultural terms so much that it was impossible for us to find a starting point to do something, to link today with the past and with the future. This is why we started from very, very little villages. In Italy, we call them Italia Historic Smart Villages. Italia because we were in Italy. Historic because they are small places at maximum 1,900 inhabitants, which can be managed in a better way to start from some points and to build together with the communities this link. Março is an example of this because nobody of us is going to invent anything. We have just to put together experiences from one side, from the other side, and so on, and to put them in a way that we can apply sensations, projects, strategies, and so on in different places, starting from the experience we already know. But the difference is that, of course, you cannot apply to cure a methodology in different places. You have to tailor the intervention you will make in a specific way for that place. And this is why, for example, Ortiga would be a very, very interesting candidate to smart villages from abroad, or, for example, in Lithuania, Kernave. They could be very ideal candidate to these projects. I'm going to speak about these two experiences about this in a while. We started from a SWOT analysis, you can see it, and we decided to select 13 requirements to be an historical smart village. We applied this kind of vision starting from the heritage model, which says, in a few words, this is the unique slide on heritage, which says something like, if you attribute a value to something, in our case, to cultural heritage, then you will preserve it. Because if you cannot give importance, probably you will lose it. Normal. We do it every day at home, for example. We preserve objects that we deal with, or we think they are useful in the future or important in a feeling we have, and something like that. Only if you preserve something, you can communicate it. Because if you have nothing to communicate, it is not possible and not useful to communicate anything. Last but not least, if you have these three arguments, these three areas, these three fields in place, then you can build services, tourism, jobs, and projects, national, international, local. You can do it only if you have all the aspects preserved. And we tried to apply this point of view, this vision, to our little villages. Here we are in a little village, which is called Collicello, 158 inhabitants. very active, and we started to interact with them. This is the Proloco, which is the local association for promotion of the place. And you can see this, we will see it in a while, and this panel we have here, we stimulated to create, and which was created by the students of the course at the university, speaking about the territory, but also some challenges. What is interesting is that the university created this part of the panel, but the cover and the structure was realized by artisans, local artisans, at their expenses. This is very interesting because we were strangers in that place, because they were involved in this process. The second interesting, this is the more the nearer vision of the panel. The second interesting thing is that this panel is not a normal panel, but tried to put together 10 or more issues we spoke about a few minutes ago. They are diffusion of knowledge, culture, and this is it is in Italian, but I'm going to translate. Technological innovation, because we used what you are seeing on the left. This one is an NFC tag you can find around the panel, and you can put your mobile phone near and having a lot of information more or translation more than the panel, and it is digital teaching, because we have an average of age of 60, 70 years of the inhabitants, and only a few people, young people. So it is a way to interact in a digital way also with them. Accessibility to disabled people, because it is possible to go there without any barrier, physical barrier, but you have also the NFC, which helps to hear. If you are not able to see, you can hear the same text and so on. Multilingual information for tourists, thanks to the same object. Reduction of impact, because we call it ecological transition, because you are not compelled to realize 3 panels, 4 panels, 5 panels. You need just one panel and then technology. Very, very low cost, very low cost, which is not a secondary argument and issue. Creating infrastructures, because there were no panels, no indication in the places and so on. Support to local administrations, because they, for example, we are speaking about this in 2 or 3 minutes. I have also 10 minutes more, I think, but we are supporting the local administration. For example, if a local administration receives, and it is the case, a lot of millions euros, it is like it is a similar situation when you give 1 liter of wine to a person that doesn't drink wine. So she or he will get drunk. And the same effect is the financial support, if you cannot make possible to have a support, a technical also support to manage it. And then welfare, because we have involved private persons. This is the second case. here is more evident, and here is evident. It is awareness. It is awareness of young generations and also middle-aged generation to the respect of environment, to the respect of social relations. To, for example, this is a very, very little place, but if you go there with a car making noise or too much driving too much fast, is a problem, because here you have young people playing on the road because it is normal for them. So you have to change your mentality and to be sensible to the fact that you are in another context. This project was 1 year ago. This project was approved and used by 5 ministers: Minister of Culture, Ministers of Tourism, Minister of Environment, Minister of Technological Development, and Minister of Infrastructures. And a program, a 5 years program, 2022-2026. It is not the case because it is not for chance, because the recovery funds have the same duration, and they approved our requirements and our methodology to give to the local communities, not to ourselves. It's a pity, but to finance the local communities from the recovery funds coming from next generation European program. Now we started with just one local community, which was Collicello. You already saw it. And in 1 year, we have 138 local communities adhering to the program. And 40% of these communities were financed by the government, by the state, previous and present government, for an amount around 80 million euros in total, and we are assisting them just for the roadmap. We are not developing the directly project for an ethical issue, of course. If you evaluate, you cannot be a consultant. It is not ethic, but we are helping in the process. This is a step-by-step adventure in 5 steps, 5 years. The short-term process is aimed to set a common strategy, but also a specific local strategy. So we have to balance local and global sides of to develop awareness in the territories and to give local support, which is our challenge, a challenge of ours. The middle term process from 3 to 5 years. In this middle term, it is expected to have an improvement of the quality of life, which can be measured, accreditation, certification, if needed, where needed, and so on, and diffusion and consolidation and promotion of the idea. The long-term process is aimed to cover 5-10 years. So after the financing, after 2026, and we would see network activities in place and social recognition and policy weight of the local communities. If you think that a city, the 30 metropolitan areas, big areas in Italy, compared with the 80,500 little communities, can give less votes to politicians that the 80,500 very small places, you can easily understand that the policy weight of local communities can become very, very important also for political reasons in the future. Fourth step is the local brand index, which was created with 5 sub-indexes to measure these 3 steps. And the final step is the how much time we spend to measure every time the progress. We can do it every 6 months, which is suitable for the milestones and the targets that the European program give to reach. They have to be reached in a span of time. And it is also useful to maintain contacts with local communities. This is the roadmap we designed. We are now in the second step, as you can easily understand. And this is everything about our work in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maurizio. This has been, I think, a very interesting demonstration of a specific approach that interconnects the understanding of the territory and its needs, and then a transformative participatory project. Who wants to say something? Questions? Okay. If there are no questions, it means you were very clear. So, thank you.
No, I can just add the fact that everything I didn't say this in the presentation. Everything is built according to the memory and the history of the places. They build every project considering their tradition, considering their history, and so on. Long-term history or short-term history. And I think this is an added value, speaking about the Apheleia seminar, for example, because it is essential not to disrupt everything of the past. We have to take the past to build the future, of course, but in a way that it is understandable also to old people, for example. So they are so linked to tradition, so linked to the past, their past, that it is impossible to change completely the scenario. So this is, I think, an added value.
So, if no one wants to say anything, I thank you very much, Maurizio. We will be in touch anyway.
Okay.
Now I see that we already have with us José Subtil, who is professor at the Autonomous University of Lisbon, an historian. We know each other for a recent time. Maybe we met, maybe even less. In the context of the preparation of the joint PhD program we now have with Autonomous University, in which José Subtil was the president of the Scientific Council. He has developed a series of activities, first of all, of course, as an historian, but also dealing with archives, also serving in different functions. He lectured in having therefore a very wide experience of different levels of intervention in higher education. The reason of me inviting him to this conference is that I attended a lecture he gave for Brazil a couple of weeks ago, which I found remarkable in terms of reasoning, and I thought it would be good to bring this kind of reasoning here. So, José Subtil, bem-vindo. Obrigado por estares aqui. Bom, é teu.
Bonjour à tous. Je remercie le professeur Louis Osterbeck de l'invitation à participer à cette rencontre scientifique pour vous parler d'une culture et d'une vision du monde très différente de nos sociétés contemporaines et qui, à elles seules, constituent un dispositif disciplinaire de régulation sociale très fort. Bon, le titre de mon intervention est donc Théologie, justice et communauté, la régulation sociale sous l'Ancien Régime, les cas ibériques entre le XVIe et XVIIIe siècle. Contrairement à l'autorité des sciences sociales qui contestent aujourd'hui l'analyse et la compréhension de la société et des pratiques culturelles, les deux seules sciences sociales qui expliquaient le monde et la société sous l'Ancien Régime étaient seulement la théologie et le droit. Donc, le discours créait la manière dont il représentait la vie et les relations sociales, c'est-à-dire qu'il guidait la perception et l'appréciation du comportement individuel. La morale, plus que l'éthique contemporaine, résulte de cet ensemble de disciplines et de prescriptions qui se développe au-delà de la volonté individuelle et s'impose de l'extérieur. L'éthique et la morale de l'Ancien Régime est donc émergée des textes sacrés et de la loi naturelle. Donc, les principes moraux et les devoirs étaient acceptés comme naturels et uniques, et les vertus étaient justifiées exclusivement comme des formules pour l'amélioration du comportement individuel et social. Cette idée que la morale n'était pas historique et avait une origine naturaliste la rendait irréfutable. Tout changement ou ajout au précédent ne pouvait se faire, ce qui supposait que la morale était absolue et non le produit d'un processus de civilisation. Les références avant-gardistes sont celles de Samuel Pufendorf, dans la lignée d'Hugo Grotius et de Thomas Hobbes, pour promouvoir la dignité et la personne humaine et assumer un contrat avec la société. Bon, la liberté et la personnalité juridique individuelle sont des traits distinctifs de la société qui a émergé avec l'État libéral. Dans une société aussi différente que celle de l'Ancien Régime, il devient difficile de percevoir sa culture, dont les fondements sont totalement différents. La compréhension de cette tradition littéraire, théologique et juridique, dominée par un ordre cosmique avec des conséquences pour la catégorisation sociale, était structurée par des États et des corps sociaux mis pour l'impulsion de la volonté du Créateur. Le périmètre de connaissance de cette différence consiste à admettre un nouveau changement dans un futur proche comme alternative au modèle libéral. Dans cette culture très particulière, le principe théologique et juridique se fondait dans une conception de la société où il n'avait pas d'individus isolés, mais liés l'un aux autres pour le lien qui constituait le ciment de l'agrégation de la société, tal que la honnêteté, l'honneur, la gratitude, la charité, l'amour et l'amitié. Et les principes du jus commun, du droit canonique, des coutumes, des traditions, de la famille, du corps professionnel, de l'Église et de la couronne. La vision du monde de l'Ancien Régime comportait 13 ingrédients qui bloquaient le changement de culture morale. Le premier était la immobilité du monde et de la société, sans place pour réformer ce qui était parfaitement fait. La seconde avait à voir avec la vision anthropomorphique de la société vue dans la similitude de la composition organique et fonctionnelle du corps humain, modèle parfait de l'œuvre du Créateur. Et la troisième, la survalorisation de la vie spirituelle pour préparer la place dans la vie éternelle, avec recours à l'Institut des chapelles ou au pied légal pour supplier ou souffrance du purgatoire. La circulation, la liberté, l'individualité de la personnalité juridique, la lutte pour le bien-être matériel ne faisaient pas partie de cette vision et représentation du monde. Donc, la liberté n'avait pas de sens à penser. À cela s'ajoute le fait que le destin de l'humanité étant ce qui était prescrit et prévu dans l'œuvre du Créateur, le mouvement social devait se conformer à ses plans et ne pas s'immiscer dans son exécution ou son altération, ce que faisait de la justice le modèle, c'est-à-dire défendre le statu quo, défendre ce que personne n'oserait altérer ou modifier. Dans ce contexte, c'est à travers des valeurs que se sont constitués les liens durables et transmissibles, fondés sur le don, la récompense et la gratitude, et sur la culture des vertus essentielles telles que la honnêteté, l'honneur, l'attachement à la vérité, la gratitude, la prodigalité, la protection des autres, la charité, le comportement juste et correct des supérieurs et des inférieurs. Dans cette culture, l'amour et l'amitié sont décisifs, sentiments traités abondamment pour la théologie chrétienne qui unit les familles. La famille de la maison qui unissait parents et enfants, mari et femme, serviteurs et esclaves, et la grande famille de l'Église qui unissait tout le monde en Dieu. L'amour comme l'amitié renforçait les relations avec les autres, avec des conséquences sur la culture politique. Le pastoralisme chrétien associait également le pouvoir du prince à celui du bon berger et du vassaux ou brebis d'un troupeau, de même que le père de la famille était le berger de ses proches, le courrier de ses paroissiens et l'évêque de son diocèse. Ce rapport au pouvoir pastoral chrétien, en tant qu'unité et œcuménique a établi des inégalités naturelles au sein du troupeau, à commencer par ceux qui avaient besoin de la protection, de la charité, de la compassion et de béatitude. Précisément pour cette raison, le sentiment d'amour et de protection appartiennent à chaque berger pour garder et prendre soin de son troupeau. Dès lors, l'amour de la famille, non de la famille cellulaire de la société contemporaine, mais de la famille élargie, composée de parents, d'enfants, de parents et de serviteurs, soumise au pouvoir du pater familias, a généré un ensemble d'obligations que chacun unissait et obligeait. En parfaite conjonction avec l'amour, l'amitié est née de l'égalité entre les personnes. Dans le cas, celui qui pouvait donner le plus à ce qu'il n'avait pas et cimenter les récompenses pour remplacer le don reçu. Pour cette raison, l'amitié était réciproque, accentuait les liens doux, cultivait la libéralité, la charité et la magnificence. Les amis attendaient les autres des contributions réciproques et inégales. L'inférieur était obligé de fournir moins, mais en retour, de donner plus d'amour à son supérieur. En conclusion, si l'inférieur était soumis à l'économie de la gratitude, le supérieur restait à l'économie du don, tout obéissant à une économie générale de bénéfices. Ce qui a toujours été tenu pour acquis était l'éternelle obligation de gratitude et de rétribution, que faisait de tous les bénéficiaires une armée de personnes reconnues et fidèles, un vaste réseau de clients à qui l'on pouvait demander de nouveaux services ou l'accomplissement des devoirs d'assistance. Cette naturalité, idéalisée comme justice idéale, était incompatible avec le volontarisme. C'est-à-dire que ce qu'il fallait faire n'est pas un sujet de volonté, mais assuré par la raison naturelle des choses. Il s'écoulait sans marge d'interprétation individuelle dans le cadre obligé de valeurs et lignes directrices en dehors de chacun. Évidemment, dans ce système, des infractions, des erreurs et des étourderies pouvaient être commises en raison d'un manque de respect ou d'une désobéissance aux principes et aux règles. Mais, comme pour le péché, une réparation juste et équitable était prévue. Le salut était toujours possible. Et aussi, il était admis que le droit du pardon était l'un des devoirs sacrés du bon père et berger, tout en maintenant toujours la possibilité de punir comme prévention et punition pour le bien de la famille et du troupeau. Avec le libéralisme, l'éthique l'emporterait largement sur la morale. Et le principe d'orientation comportementale appellerait le contrôle des pulsions individuelles dans une perspective de civilisation et de bien public. En d'autres termes, lorsque la raison a remplacé la croissance, la vérité des textes bibliques et l'influence de la morale ont diminué. En conclusion, de la société traditionnelle, rythmée pour la stabilité, la hiérarchie et la discipline dogmatique, on est passé à une société de transformation permanente, pour celle-même en permanence surveillée et rongée pour le remords, et la morale en est venue à être considérée comme un phénomène historique, un processus transitoire, irrémédiablement bouleversé par des crises de conscience successives. Ce retournement a, dans la pensée critique de Kant, critique de la raison pratique, la véritable image de la crise soulevée par une orientation individuelle des comportements lorsque, dans sa critique de la raison pratique, il propose une nouvelle éthique universelle pour éviter le relativisme et se soumettre au fameux impératif catégorique selon lequel tout ce que nous faisons peut éventuellement devenir une loi universelle. Le philosophe Zygmunt Bauman, l'un de ceux qui ont le plus réfléchi à la culture morale postmoderne, défend une autre maxime selon laquelle tous nos comportements doivent viser à se rapprocher l'autre, en évitant le désastre du contractualisme libéral et le pouvoir de maximiser dans les codes et règles normatives le devoir moral. Merci pour votre attention.
Merci José Subtil. C'est un exercice ici d'essayer de voir comment... c'est pour ça que j'avais invité José Subtil et j'ai cru que son thème était très intéressant. Parce qu'on réfléchit toujours dans le cadre d'un système, d'une vision de monde qui est informée par certaines valeurs. Et on a discuté pendant la semaine des exemples, même François Sémah ce matin quand il disait quand on approche les gens, il faut partir toujours de leur point de départ. Et disons, comprendre comment les choses se sont transformées dans le temps est très important. Moi, je demande s'il y a des questions. Mais moi j'ai quand même une question à poser. C'est que finalement, si on peut simplifier cette transition de l'Ancien Régime à l'époque contemporaine, il y a eu largement une affirmation de l'individu qui était moins considérée, si on peut dire comme ça, dans la période précédente. La raison et la citoyenneté, les valeurs associées à la res publica ont remplacé largement ce monde théologique unicitaire. Ma question est, qu'est-ce que tu penses? Est-ce que nous sommes en train de revenir en arrière dans un monde où il y a de plus en plus d'affirmations absolutes, même si elles sont divisées par des groupes qui ont des visions différentes du monde, mais en tout cas très peu flexibles, très unicitaires, finalement. Comment tu vois la situation?
Merci Louis. Et bon, je pense que la leçon que nous pouvons retirer de cette différence, c'est que le prochain futur, c'est probablement un modèle différent dans le modèle libéral. Parce que le modèle libéral ne fonctionne pas. L'individu, la sacralisation de l'individu, la possibilité de tout le monde faire ce qu'il veut et ce qu'il pense, et non à penser dans tout, dans le groupe, dans la société. Je pense que nous pouvons être prochains d'un autre modèle culturel et avec les valeurs et les principes comme central dans la orientation de la régulation sociale. Provavelmente não é pas nécessaire qu'il soit égal à l'ancien régime, mais ne serait pas un processus historique como une affirmation du libéralisme. Parce que le libéralisme, comme tout le monde peut voir et peut réfléchir, c'est un modèle qui ne fonctionne pas. Le modèle libéral, c'est un modèle qui a perdu le sens du total de la société, de le groupe, de l'agrégation de l'individu. Et je pense que c'est le grand problème de nos sociétés. C'est le grand problème. Même que nous pouvons dire qu'il y a le droit, qu'il y a une constitution, qu'il y a un tribunal constitutionnel, qu'il y a la division du pouvoir, même que nous pouvons dire toutes ces choses, ne fonctionnent pas. Ne fonctionnent pas. Et nous pouvons voir, par exemple, en sens contraire, une société comme la chinoise, par exemple, qui n'avait pas jamais l'expérience du modèle libéral, la société chinoise, c'est une forme nous pouvons réfléchir sur qu'il y a probablement une autre forme de modèle de société qui est très fort et il n'y a pas le même que nous avons, comme par exemple la liberté individuelle, etc. Mais il y a autres choses qui sont très importantes. La prévision, la discipline grégaire, ne c'est pas la discipline autoritaire, la discipline grégaire. Bon, c'est pour cela que l'histoire c'est important, porque l'histoire nous pouvons dire que les hommes et les sociétés ne fonctionnent jamais comme le modèle libéral. Et pourtant, existe la possibilité de changement. Et la possibilité de changement, c'est le meilleur que nous pouvons avoir. C'est une forme de compenser tous les problèmes que nous avons aujourd'hui.
Sinon, on vous laisse avec cette réflexion qui est en effet très importante pour l'avenir. Parce que vous savez, beaucoup des approches quand on discute des questions du patrimoine, de la culture dans la société, etc., elles sont comprises à partir d'un cadre qui est le cadre de la société occidentale, même si ce sont après disséminés un peu sur toute la planète. On ne peut pas penser que nos discussions sur les paysages culturels, sur le patrimoine, même sur la science, resteront exactement de la même façon s'il y a des changements. Et c'est en effet, comme dit José Subtil, l'histoire c'est ça, les choses changent. Merci beaucoup, c'était très bon de t'avoir ici avec nous. Malheureusement, je ne peux pas t'inviter à déjeuner. C'est notre prochain pas. Alors, merci.
Merci, merci.
Et nous allons alors faire la pause un peu plus tôt, et ce qui nous permettrait de commencer aussi un peu plus tôt. Si on va déjeuner maintenant, on pourrait être ici vers 2 heures. Est-ce que vous croyez que c'est possible? Non? Oh, sorry. I'm saying that as we are earlier on time, we could go for lunch now, and I'm asking if it's okay for you to start at 2. Because if we go earlier, we could come earlier as well. Anticipate a little bit the program. Is this okay? Yeah?